Philip Sablik. I'm the president of publishing and marketing at Boom Studios. We're the publisher behind the Lantern City comic book. And here with me today, I have the creator of Lantern City, Trevor Crafts.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for coming.
Co-creator and star of screen, Bruce Boxleitner.
Hello. Thank you.
Who? And co-creator and co-writer of the comic book, Matthew Daly. All right. So today we're going to take you through Lantern City, what it is, and hopefully make a whole bunch of new fans of this amazing steampunk property. So I'm going to start off with a very simple question, which is, Trevor.
I was told there would be no math on this test, so if
You were lied to. So what was the genesis behind Lantern City?
It's funny, Lantern City was actually really just a very small little idea that I had on a plane flight from New York to LA. It's really sort of a question of how far would you be willing to go to be with the person that you love the most. So it was actually sort of started as a love story. It was really about this guy named Max who was desperately trying to find his fiancée who had just evaporated, disappeared. And he is incredibly despondent. Weeks go by, months go by, nobody can find her. There's a police investigation, and basically as the detective is closing in, thinking that maybe Max did something untoward to his new fiancée, he finds this magic lantern. It's not actually magic, but this is what they called 18th century slide projectors. And essentially, he turns it on and sees this fantastic image on the wall that's projected. And this is actually one of the early pieces of concept art that we showed all the way back at Dragon Con, I think.
Dragon Con,
yeah. 2013.
The next slide shows you sort of one of our main images of concept art of this incredible, fantastic world that just is impossible, could not exist. And amazingly enough, he sees his fiancée Rachel in this image. And impossibly, he sees her. And he sort of goes up and touches the image and is transported to Lantern City. And that was sort of the initial, burst of the idea that I had. And we sort of started building more characters and sort of flushing things out. And Bruce and I were working on a comedy western pilot called Smokewood, Nevada.
Smokewood, yes.
And I had approached him. I know he had done a TV series. I think it was called Babylon 4 or 6? Five. So I needed a collaborator. I needed somebody that could sort of build this world with me. So Bruce came on pretty quickly, and then after that, very quickly after that, we brought Matt on, and Matt really took this kernel of an idea that we had been developing and just blew it out into this huge, amazing 80-character, multi-class structured universe, and we can't get him to stop writing. And we've tried, but it's just so... So actually, when we went and met up with Boom Studios, and had talked to Stephen Christie, who's the president of development, about potentially doing a comic book series, we went to Matt and said, "What do you got?" And he
was like, "I thought you'd never ask."
I have, boy, do I have some stuff, and came up with this story that is all built in Lantern City. So it really gives sort of the base and shows the characters and shows a lot of this world that we have been building for the last few years. And we did a fine job.
From the kernel of the idea, which was a love story, to this gigantic steampunk epic. First of all, what was it about the steampunk genre in particular that sparked your imagination, Bruce, got you interested in the project? Because it's obviously a big piece of it.
Well, Trevor and I sat, he came to me when we were sitting in my place, in my house, and...
Which is nice. Nice place.
We were talking about this thing. We had an idea, and I've always seen steampunk. I think we all have. I love it. I'm a history buff. I think you have to have that sort of essence, and it's sort of this history that never really happened, but it seems, depends on who's telling the story, it seems very, very real. Victorian age, and so on and so forth, this age of revolutionary industry and conventions and everything, and it's a very creative place, as you see with people who participate in it, and it's also very open. I mean, all kinds of ideas come into this thing. Our version is not a bunch of jocular British men and women in top hats and goggles with ray guns and bustiers.
Well, there are some of those.
Yeah, well, in certain districts of the city where you can go, you can see the bustiers. But it's a I would think a feeling of steampunk and Blade Runner sort of mashed
sort of
up.
mash up.
Having been on Babylon 5, I know about the continuing story arcs, multi-characters, multi-layered stories, all going in this direction to come to a finale, which is now the sort of standard television. If you look at it, when we did Babylon 5, I remember them always saying to us that we could never sell this in syndication because it's continuing stories. They didn't want that. That was in the last century. Now, every television series, it seems like, at least dramas, are a continuing story with multiple arcs going. And so I think that's what I saw. I saw this sort of, I'd been in Babylon 5, which was a little darker version, certainly, than Star Trek, which had been predominant sci-fi television. So I think this kind of answers that. I think it's much more contemporary. It sort of reflects the world we're living in, too, as all good science fiction does. It reflects the times in which you're making it, This isn't Gene Roddenberry's optimistic 60s, early 60s. This is where we are now, which is sometimes doesn't seem so optimistic. A lot more cynical, I would say. And I think steampunk just, its time has been long overdue for something in total. And we have to bring our own version of it in there. That's what's so wonderful about steampunk. You can have multiple versions, But there's always that little feeling of H.G. Wells still
Absolutely.
in the background,
Yeah. And I think, that speaks to one of the things that is really amazing about the steampunk community, which is that it's a community of makers, and it's people that really invest their time and energy into realizing, again, this alternate history that never existed.
An alternate history, right.
And so, what I'd love to hear is also how you guys, I feel like, have been unique in that you've really spent a lot of time engaging with the community, asking them questions about what they want to see, and really trying to make it authentic to the fans of the medium. And we've got the helmet of the Lantern City Guard up here, and I think
In the back, maybe, I think.
we have our Lantern City Guard. Why don't you come on
up and we'll show this off a bit. You're the next contestant on Lantern City. So here's our full.
He's our guard in training.
Lantern City Guard.
So, how did this come about?
Well, the steampunk community is such a maker community. Everybody builds their own characters, they build their own props, they build their own world, essentially. And it seemed like such an amazing opportunity to take this huge fan base that is just waiting for something and sort of bring everybody together under one roof and be able to showcase all of the different kinds of steampunk that there is. One of the genius elements that Matt added in to the storyline was creating these sort of multiple classes. So you have the Gray Empire, which essentially is the ruling class, and the Lantern City Guard here really police the worker class for the Gray Empire. And we brought in some of the best steampunk makers in the industry. Thomas Banwell, who's a phenomenal mask maker, created and designed the Lantern City Guard helmet for us. And then Tom Williford, who is another great steampunk artisan. His work was featured on Castle, on the steampunk episode of Castle, and he made the rest of the suit for us, so the body armor. And it's just such a great combination of workers that are coming together in the steampunk genre. And to sort of extend that, because we wanted to start with the fans first, we have a place on our website on lanterncitytv.com where you can go and submit your own designs, your own props, your own guns, your own jewelry, your own dresses, your own transportation, and the best of the best will actually take those And starting actually in issue 5 of the comic book series, we're going to have Carlos Magno, who is our absolutely phenomenal illustrator, start actually drawing them into the pages of the comic. So essentially, you'll get, all the makers will really see their creations come to life in the pages of Lantern City.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And you guys also, I think, have another prop at the Lantern City booth.
Yeah,
right?
so in the the comic book is at the Boom Studio booth, which is the big tall booth right in the middle by the Marvel booth. And in the absolute hinterlands, the furthest corner on the right
Of the universe.
Just like this panel room.
just like this panel room. So go the entire opposite direction, and you'll find the Lantern City booth. We're 2106, right by the cupcake vendor. So if anybody wants cupcakes, you know where to find us. We have actually one of the guns from the Lantern City Guard, the full metal prop gun that Thomas Williford also built for us. So
And that's what I love about it. You picture a guy about 7 foot, 300 pounds, and a dozen of these guys coming at you. I think even Darth Vader would run from that face. I wanted something that was more intimidating than, we've had some great villains.
Yeah, I love that everyone applauds when we bring out the guard. You would not do that. Within the universe we've created, you would not do that.
Yeah, you would run.
Yeah, you wouldn't be running, you wouldn't be there.
Yeah. So, Matt, actually, I think this is a good time to maybe share with everybody what is the structure of the world of Lantern City, because we've talked about what the entry point is and kind of the idea is it's this impossible steampunk setting, but what does the world of Lantern City look like?
Oh, great question, Bill.
Thank you. I've come prepared.
I thought we were all just going to share stories about our Atlantic City trips from the past.
no, we're not going to do. That's for the next panel.
Okay,
That's it.
all right,
That's-
because I got mine.
And it's mixed
The one
company.
with Lou and the Porters. Yeah, I know that story.
That's Lantern City after hours. So the world of Lantern City, as Trevor alluded to a little bit, is sort of a 3-tiered world. And you've got your street level, which is called the depths. So your workers live, essentially the people that slave away for the empire who lives above. And you can see in some of the images that Philip showed before, where the ruling class and the wealthy live is literally a city above the city. So they have no interaction with the grunts like us. And they can go about and not even worry. I mean, the only real interaction they have is with the smoke that rises from the factories, and that's it. And then underneath the city is called the underground. And that was built when the city was built, because there's always a concern. So there's a wall that surrounds the entire city. But there was also concern if you ever get attacked by air, that you need a place to hide to be able to put your population. So essentially the same size as the city, which is huge, there's an entire underground class. And here's where all of your well, not just all your criminals, but people who don't want to be under the rule of the Gray Empire. So that's how the structure of the world is. For the TV show that we've been developing, it's very easy to show all those places just with different characters, because there's so many characters. In the comic book, I had to develop a storyline where you would have one character who ends up navigating all 3, which has been a good challenge.
And the story, let me just mention, the story of the comic book is about a guy named Sander, who's just really a working class guy, and is trying to do right for his family and his wife and his son. And his brother-in-law is a sort of revolutionary leader, wants a workers' sort of movement.
Peaceful revolutionary.
Peaceful revolution. He gets sort of swept up in the dramatic events surrounding this and finds himself sort of the only way that he can change the world around him and really protect the people he loves the most is to become the thing he hates, and that's a Lantern City Guard. So he spends the book essentially impersonating the guard and trying not to be caught throughout this storyline that we've developed, which originally was supposed to be a short story.
Yeah, last year we were going to release a few, because we had Rise come out in 2013. We're like, well, maybe we'll do a few short stories, little freebies for the fans, keep them excited and engaged. And I pitched a couple of ideas to Trevor that I had developed. I mean, these would be good short stories, and like, yeah, let's do this one about the guy who becomes a Lantern City Guard. I was like, it'll be a short story. And
Short
I had
story.
arced the
Remember
entire
those
story
words.
out, and I got 40,000 words in, and I had not even really reached the end of Act 1, if we're thinking like film terms. So like, we're screwed, it's gonna be a book. And then right at that same time is when we had our talks with Boom, which was great because they suggested, let's not do the storyline from the TV series as the comic. Let's give fans something different. Do you have anything? It's like, here you go.
And that's important for us too, because as Lantern City is, hopefully
It's a
show,
city.
it's a city. It's
There's
not
many,
one,
many stories.
Yeah, not one story. So as we sort of have created this transmedia universe, we have books, we have comics, we have a TV show that we're working on, and so I think all of these things together really sort of gives you this big picture of this huge world that we've developed.
That's right. How about we get a round of applause for our Lantern City Guard legend? Take a seat again. So let's talk real quick before we dive back into the comic book. Trevor and Bruce, both of your backgrounds are in film and television. So, can you share a little bit like what your vision is ideally for this whole world that you've created, beyond the comic book?
I think it's like 28 or 29 seasons, I think is the plan. So longer than The Simpsons, I think would be a
The
good.
sci-fi Gunsmoke, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, look how visual it is. I mean, it lends itself to motion picture or television. I mean, it just is. It's a visual medium. I'm so impressed with the comics. I have to tell you, I'm looking at the
Our covers.
covers
Incentive
here.
covers, all available at the Boom Studios booth.
yeah. I mean, they're perfect storyboards
Yeah.
for let's shoot now. I mean.
Bruce is
And
ready,
that's how we
everybody.
do, I mean, that's how you do it. That's all these Marvel movies, all these things are made. I mean, they have it all storyboarded out. You literally have your shot. There it is. Now you take your camera, your lighting, and all that sort of thing, and you capture that very same image. We have it right there. I mean,
Yeah, another
I can
benefit
hear
of
the
the
music already. But, it's a great story. It's like I said earlier, it's a saga, and that's very in right now, very in vogue.
Yeah, I thought one of the things, when you guys approached us at Boom about doing a comic book, we get approached from time to time by different partners with different ideas, and, we've always wanted to do a steampunk comic book, because again, the world is so rich, the community is
Yeah.
so amazing. But the issue we always had is typically when we would get pitched these ideas from different creators, it was always about the world, and there was no character. And I think what is really compelling about Lantern City is in both the TV iteration and the comic iteration, it's all rooted and grounded in character and this, what lengths you would go to.
Yeah, and that's kind of the core. I mean, it always has to funnel back to that question.
Yeah.
That sort of
And
really simple question.
and I think all great drama, I don't care what it is, going all the way back, Shakespeare and everything, there's some sort of love story is always in the center, but we have to have something that appeals to the ladies as well. It's not just fanboy stuff, I think, and that's what I love about steampunk. Women are so actively involved. Look at the novels, what's her name, Sherry Priest or something like that. She's a big novelist if you go in your bookstores.
Yeah, Gail Carriger.
Gail Carriger, whom we've met, all these ladies. And a lot of these steampunk are heroines, detectives, what have you, whatever they are.
And that was important for the comic also. We have a lot of strong female characters
Strong
that
female, very
that
strong
are within
female.
the
So
comic as well.
this is a very contemporary piece, I think, and I think Matt's really fleshed out some very, very interesting characters. And that is the important part of it. It can't be all special effects, which so many films are today, and that's what they lack the most. Deep characterizations, that's how you're going to get involved, and you'll want to tune in next week.
Yeah, we always say that if steampunk fans could probably get us on TV, but fans of good storytelling are going to keep us on television.
Remember,
That's
always
what's
the
coming
adage,
back.
the thing is, it's got to appeal to, it's like doing the Tron movies, okay? I'm just sort of name dropping there.
Self-promotion never hurts.
The whole idea in Tron Legacy was, how are we going to get people, this is it was 28 years before we did Tron Legacy, that we did the original. How are you going to get people that weren't even born yet, or never saw Tron, were not interested in Tron? How are we going to get those people to come into the box office? You've got to find a way to appeal and remind people that knew it, and also try to appeal to somebody that may be new to it. Same thing with this. You're going to have to appeal to people that wouldn't know. If you walked up to the street on the street to somebody and said, "What is steampunk to you?" and they'd go, "What?" Outside of this room, there are many people that don't even like it. We have to try to appeal to those people to get them to like it.
It's
It's a big order.
Yeah, one of the benefits of the comic book as well is, and Trevor and I have done some pitching around town in LA, that'll be the first question that's always thrown right back at us. What's steampunk?
Oh, yeah,
Now it's like,
Hollywood
here
wouldn't
you
know if
go.
they fell over it, so.
That's what it is. Like, oh, okay, it just makes it easier. And I'm not saying people are stupid, but
Some are. Soon the answer will be what's steampunk, and the answer will be Lantern City.
Yeah,
That's the plan. That's the plan.
that'd be a good goal to have, wouldn't it?
So, Trevor and Matt working on the comic book, this was the first comic book you guys have been on the creation side
Yep.
of. And so, can you talk a little bit about that experience? And obviously, we have here some process pieces from Carlos, Magno, the artist on the series, showing his pencils, his inks, and then the final colored pages.
Just marvelous.
oh, I mean, it's been such an honor to be able to work with so many talented people from obviously Carlos and our editorial team and editors and all of the marketing people. Everyone at Boom has just been amazing, fully supportive of the book.
Go on.
Yeah.
No,
Philip?
go on. Philip has been the best, though. I mean,
Yeah.
he's
Always
a round of
answer-
applause for Philip Sadler,
Always answers the phone.
president of publishing of Boom.
I mean, they took a huge risk working with us because we hadn't done a comic book before, but they did see the potential in it. And luckily, both Trevor and I are very open to learning as much as we can about everything that we do. And I had never written a comic book before. I had done plenty of copywriting. I've done book writing, movie writing, everything. But I had never written a comic book. And because I've been reading comic books my entire life, I thought, I can write a comic book. I've read them since I was 6. It's easy. And then I had the most humbling experience of my life after I handed in the first draft of issue 1. And Matt Gagnon, the editor-in-chief, brought out the whiteboard. It's like, Matt, you don't know what you're doing. This is how you write a comic book. And I was like, oh.
He had done exactly what Matt had written, and it was
I
9
had,
panels.
Yeah, so I had 2-page description for the first panel on page 1. I was like, well, I might as well give the artist enough to work with. It's like, no, trust the artist. And that's what's been great, because Carlos is an amazing artist. I don't know if anyone's read any of his other work he's done. He did a great run on RoboCop and a great run on Planet of the Apes. He's amazing. And I think, a little biased, but I think this is his best work. And
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you'll see that too as the issues progress. But when I learned how to write a comic book, then it became a lot more valuable experience. And now it's like it's nothing. I understand the rhythms of it. I understand the nuances of it and what to not do, which is really important. So I don't want anyone to be afraid, like, I'm not going to buy this because this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I do know what I'm doing now. I had a great support staff, for
And
sure.
now you can't stop writing that either.
Yeah,
That's
it's
true. Also
It's
true. And our editorial staff at Boom, I just have to say again, Mary, who's our assistant editor, and Daphne, who's our editor, have really helped to help us tell our story and not really take it and turn it into something that it isn't, but really
Right.
just sort of help to guide Matt as he's putting these words on paper and seeing story arcs and character arcs and how they build, and great ideas as to, did you think about this, did you think about that? It's been a true good collaboration with them.
Well,
They've been great.
if I could ask, oh, sorry, but is anyone here, just by raising hand, like, interested in writing comic books? By raising hand? No? Okay. only
2,
people.
3, 5, 7,
T-
8, 1.
I would say, do yourself a favor when you want to write comic books as compared to anything else. Get yourself a sketch pad. Get them at Staples for $8. Just blank sheets of paper and draw it out. Even if you're a terrible art, I'm worse than you.
He is the worst.
I have
it's
the worst
true.
handwriting ever.
Stick
but if you,
figures,
if you
right.
draw it out, you're going to put yourself into the mindset of what the artist will then see, and then you're working with someone already instead of just like, let me type it up, because as soon as you start typing, you're going to get too verbose.
And that is really one of the interesting things about comic books is that, unlike most other writing, you're writing for an audience of one, which is the artist, right? And so your job as the writer is to convey everything so that Carlos can come in. What's neat, I think, about all three of your backgrounds is perfect for comics because you're coming from a collaborative medium, right? And that's, you have to be at a place where you want that feedback and you want the play of going back and forth with another creative person and getting something that is not what you imagine in your mind, but it's the sum of all your imaginations, right?
And even I think Stephen, who's the president of Boom, was saying that we're approaching this a little differently because we do have a very collaborative approach. We are sharing ideas around, almost like a little mini writer's room, with ideas and
We're a mini studio.
Yeah, we are, absolutely.
Now, out of curiosity, Matt, you mentioned that you grew up reading comic books. What was your guys' experience individually? Bruce, Trevor, did you guys read comic books growing up or currently? any impressions of the medium? Is it different now that you've done it?
It's interesting because I did start reading early. Didn't read a lot of superhero, didn't read a lot of Marvel and DC, but I started with Dark Horse titles in the early 90s. So they had done some really interesting expansions of Aliens and Predator, and I just thought that it was just so interesting that these movies that I just blew my mind were also on the page as well. And I then wanted the Predator sequel to be the comic book, and it wasn't, and I was very disappointed. But
But it did have Bill Paxton.
That's true. It did. And what's bad about Bill Paxton? Nothing. So I had been a huge comic book fan and avid reader, more on the independent side, and then had a long hiatus, and then really because of this, have gotten sort of back into it again. And I think the interesting thing about just that there's such a varied, diverse universe of titles that are available. There weren't really comic book for kids so much when, at least that I remember. There weren't
Archie.
like Archie and a couple others, but there wasn't like Kaboom has with Adventure Time and Steven Universe and all of these other Lumberjanes and all of this stuff that's more youth oriented. And a lot of it was sort of X-Men and all of that. But I think that that's sort of amazing now, is that you've got this big, wide field of all these different artists, and the art is still amazing. I mean, that's still what hooks me, is amazing art like Carlos's work, or some of the other people that are working today. It's just the volume of impressive talent that is, I think, continuing to bubble to the top. New people that you've never seen before. It's pretty exceptional.
Mine goes back to ancient history.
You read your first comic on a cuneiform tablet.
Just a Dead Sea Scroll. I go back to Tarzan. To me, Michelangelo's modern version is Frank Frazetta,
Yes.
fantasy art, and he had a long history with comics. I had a thrill a couple of years ago to meet Neil Adams, who I think after Frazetta was Tarzan. Those heroes of that era, Edgar Rice Burroughs, coming out of the pulp magazines. And I still collect those. I still collect first editions and vintage pulp magazines, where it all started, which would have been J. Allen St. John, and people that go way back. Nobody here would know these names, but maybe Neil Adams, you may have been. But those type of heroes are the ones that I first saw. Prince Valiant, maybe going way back then.
It's interesting because in recent
Adventures.
years, there's been a real resurgence of interest in the pulp characters.
Right, right.
Other publishers like Dynamite do the Shadow comics, Green Hornet.
The Shadow,
and,
yeah.
And I think, there's a timelessness to those characters that people have forgotten for a little while. Are rediscovered.
It seems what's old is new again.
Yeah.
New again.
Yeah.
And movies help that.
Yeah.
Certainly. But yeah, that's my history.
Yeah, for me, it started with my dad instilling a love of action movies in me. So my dad's here in the front row. He did. Yeah. So I was very interested in anything action oriented, and so when I was 7, I got my first Punisher comic book, and then after that I got into Daredevil. So I mean they are superheroes, but not quite in the same vein as like a Superman or the X-Men. And then it continued. The only reason I ever have slowed my comic book consumption is just because of space. If I'm in a small bedroom apartment, there's only so many comic books I can have, and I have a
You
family.
don't wanna
I have a
throw
family.
them away.
I know you don't want to. I have a family of 5, and my wife is thinking like, well, how many comic books? It's like my shoes or your comic books. But now it's great because that I'm writing comic books. I can just use it as an excuse. Like, it's research for work. Yeah, I need to look at these. The editors recommended I get this 12-part series. And we have the.
You can write it all off, so
Yeah.
that's good. That's true.
We had
also
the
give it to
privilege
us
to
for
go
free.
and see the first issue of Lantern City come off the press, and I said to Trevor and our cinematographer and my great friend from college, Larry Langton, that I feel so guilty that I bought so many digital comics after watching the amount of people that it takes just to get one issue off the press. It's like these people's livelihood, and I'm like, nothing against digital because it's great, especially traveling back and forth all the time. But I was like, I'm going to my comic book shop. I did it. I got back. I went and bought a bunch of books. It's like,
Now your wife regrets you ever going on.
yeah.
So we actually have a special treat for you guys in the audience. So we have a video that the guys shot with Lantern City going to press. And it was actually really exciting for me because I've been working in the industry and they got to do something I haven't done yet, which is go to our printer and watch them roll off, what was it, 20,000 copies in 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a little sizzle.
Great, great.
Yeah, that was in the factories down in Richmond, Virginia. And to do a little shameless self-promotion, I wrote an article for Comics Vine this week detailing our experiences, and it got picked up by Yahoo. So you could find out more.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting. This is a piece of the business that a lot of people don't get to see. And just a little bit of extra history I don't think I've even shared with you guys yet is Cadmus, which is the printer down in Richmond that does this for us. A few years back, our main print rep had left his old company. It was the biggest printer in North America, and he was kind of striking out on his own, and he was a terrific guy, and we trusted him implicitly, and he came to us and he said, listen, I found this new printer. There's smaller shops set up in Richmond. They've never done comics before, but they do their color fidelity is amazing, and you guys, it'll be like high definition comic books. Trust me, I'm going to go down there, I'm going to train them, I'm going to show them. And it seems like a simple thing, but what people don't realize is how particular you guys all are about your comics. And so for folks that are used to printing magazines, which just kind of get thrown into a box or wrapped up, it was this process of, you could see the folks working there wear gloves, and they're really careful and kind of checking everything because they know how important the quality and the final product is for everybody. So it was a really neat thing to see them turn that around. And they do, for us alone, they do 10 comic series a week, 40 a month, and they print millions and millions of comic books every month. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, and everybody was great down there and super nice. I was surprised at the volume that there is with all of this huge machinery and these web printers and everything else. And so we had, Matt and I were going to do some sort of walking and talking and little back and forth, which we did, and it was something like this. No audio was picked up at all.
Yeah.
It was totally terrible. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But we are actually creating a slightly longer version of this, which actually we did interviews with the pressmen and the colorists and the plate operators. So we'll be putting that together as part of a series about how Lantern City was made. So essentially, we'll have we're doing one today on this convention, sort of the end of a comics journey from its sort of inception, and we'll be doing other interviews with myself and with Bruce and with Matt, but also our letterers and our colorists and some of our cover artists. So just to really sort of get that underground feeling of how does it, the amount of people it takes, as Matt was saying, just for this book alone, with the printers at Cadmus, the people at Boom, and the artists and writers that are putting it all together, it's over 35 people that touch this comic book.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. Then as you flip through the pages, oh, this is cool. One guy drew it, and then one guy wrote it, but there's so much more.
But that's also one of the things that we always think is incredibly important at Boom is, first of all, comics are not 10 cents anymore. They're $3, $4, sometimes more. And that's just a function of the economy of comic books. But one of the things we really believe in is we want you to sit down and we want you to have an experience. And I know that's something, Matt, working with the editors, that you experience. It's like, how much story can we fit in there so that you feel like it was worth the money and the time you invested in it? It's not just this kind of thing that passes by in a
You
few
fooled
minutes.
us again, Philip.
Yep.
Well, you got to think of it, there's so many things you could be doing with your time. And if you spend 15, 20 minutes reading an issue, that's 15, 20 minutes you could be doing other things. So obviously you want to make sure you're getting your time's worth and not just your money.
Yeah.
Because you can get it costs $4 to get a coffee anymore. But, you don't think about it for the next 20 minutes when you're drinking. But, something that'll excite you to keep reading too.
Yeah, stick with you. So one other special treat for you folks that came out to the panel. This is a sneak peek of issue 2, just to give you a sense of how big the world gets.
Yeah, this is the Gray Tower. So this is where the elite of the elite, the current ruler of Lantern City, Killian Gray, lives and resides, along with the Gray Council, sort of the high-end ruling class. So Killian's royal apartment is all the way up at the top, and he is the only one that can see beyond the wall from where he lives. And then I think we have one other. Yeah, so this is the Lantern City Guard dropping in from one of the attack airships, ready to do some damage on the poor citizens of Lantern City.
So we're going to begin to wrap up the panel with Q&A portion of the panel. So think about if you have any questions about Lantern City for these guys. And I'm going to ask one last question, which is, have you guys found that there are elements of doing the comic book and building the world in the comic book with Carlos that you think now will influence the development of the television show?
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you just...
Yeah, they already have. I did a new pass of the pilot just this past week, and I incorporated elements from the comic book because as we're building the world, things are changing or shifting a little bit, and wanted to include that because when fans of the comic book come to the TV series, you want them to have things pay off. And maybe it's just only things that they know, these little Easter eggs, but it's important for them. But even sitting down and we've gone through and I initially plotted out all 12 of the issues, and then we made some changes as I wrote the first 4. So then I had to go back and change. We just reworked some of 5 through 8. And I don't think we plugged the story, the Sanders story either, The Devil's Corner.
No.
Oh, so I did a 4-part short story that's up on the website now called The Devil's Corner.
Yeah, you
and
can
there's
find it at lanterncitytv.com.
Yeah, it's a prequel to the comic book series, but there's elements of that are now in the comic book that are now in the TV series. And you have to make sure that your continuity makes sense, because if it doesn't, someone will know.
Oh, they will.
And I would like to, before we get to the Q&A, I'd like everybody to give Matt Daly a round of applause, because he did write a short story. Everybody.
Yeah, I did.
Devil's Corner, it is a short story.
Yeah, it was only supposed to be 10,000 words, and it's like 12,500, but...
Close enough. It's a process.
Close.
It's a process.
Not so short story.
Great. Does anybody have any questions about Lantern City, about Steampunk?
So your last question touched on this a little bit, but I was wondering if there were any, other than elements, any challenges that you guys are facing from transitioning from comic book to television.
In the writing, or just...
Like making it happen, like negotiating.
Oh, the deal-making side is like a whole, it's like a war.
It's like working with the Gray Empire?
Yeah, it is. It is basically, it is the Gray Empire. It is the Gray Empire. So yeah, that process is long and deep. and full of many quagmires that I didn't really anticipate. So, but I think certainly having the comic book is a big bonus. It takes a long time to get a show on the air. Most times when a fan sees that, oh, there's an Arrow spin-off, there's already been a year and a half of talks and negotiations and back and forth and people deciding on certain things that really the fans never see. So they get an alert on Blaster or Heat Vision or something that just says, hey, your favorite show is coming on the air. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to involve the fans first. So when we all launched this way back in 2012 at Comic-Con, we got you guys in on the ground floor. So everybody is seeing all of the ups and downs and pitfalls and pluses and minuses of the process of doing that. But having the comic book helps because it's another iteration of people being able to see it. And the more people see it, the more they can really understand it. And that's, I think, where our success lies.
And I'll say from my perspective that when I'm writing an episode of a television show, I have to have budget in mind. Because there are expensive television series now, but there aren't television series, there's not like one episode that costs $100 million, right? So
Not yet.
Not yet, which is good. But, even though I'm not a good person who writes short, I do really understand budget. Like a film that I wrote that was produced last year, the director told me how much money they would be able to raise at max. He's like, can you do that? Absolutely. We'll just do 4 locations. Okay, that makes sense. So for the show, it's the same thing. It's like, we're going to have a certain budget, so we need to hit those. So that's fine. With the comic book, it don't matter, which is great, because this would be like a $1 billion production, which is awesome.
And Carlos is probably the only artist that you can say, like, give me a panoramic of Lantern City from the viewpoint of the airship.
And it's like, okay, cool, which is great.
And he did.
It's a bit indulgent, but it's great. It's really nice.
At one point,
No, I'm just saying because there is a business side to all of these things. So every creative enterprise that you enter, there is a business side. If there's not, then you probably are only doing it for yourself, which is still fine. But once you have it out in the world, you have to think about those things, and it's there's a reality to it. But with the comic book, there's production costs, yes. But if Carlos draws 500 guards dropping in on a cathedral, that's fine. He'll do it. But if we were going to film that, we'd be like, well, we'll probably show it from underneath the basement of the cathedral where we'll hear it, but we won't see. So those kind of things that you have to think about.
And you guys are really good about also updating on the website the process and the progress that you're making on the media side.
Matt has been doing a creator's blog on lanterncitytv.com, and I've added a couple of guest blogs in there as well about the show, but Matt's done a lot about his history in comics and writing the comic and the things that go on there. The lanterncitytv.com really is sort of like the central hub. So,
any other questions for the guys? We got just a couple minutes left. Yes, sir.
Sir, in the front.
How long did it take you to come out with the first issue?
So not as
Can
long.
I was just saying, T, that's the funny thing. It's the exact same question my niece asked me the other night. This is a great question from kids. I love it. It's awesome. How long did it take?
It was we sort of got everything wrapped up in October, and then the first issue was done and went to print
in April.
In April.
Yeah, so a little
end of
bit.
April.
Yeah, so the first issue was the first script was complete in December.
Yep.
And then Carlos started working in the beginning of the year. It took about a month, and then they found the right colorist, the right letterer. It's it's
now
only
it's
22 pages, you're thinking, but it's a long time.
And now it's a much faster process because we've got the whole team in, and Carlos says, issue 2, guys, you have to buy issue 2. It is bananas good. Issue 2 was great.
It's a serious drop-off after that, though.
Yeah, after issue 3, though, just stop buying it because it is. No, please, don't. Stop. What are you saying?
I'm joking. Yeah, it's really good.
You're not very good at this.
No, he's terrible at this. Any other questions, please? Please, other questions.
When is the TV show supposed to air, if you guys know?
Well, we're still trying to hammer all that out, so we don't have an air date yet. So.
Sir, I have a follow-up to that because he stole my thunder.
The little ones do.
Yes, they always do. Do you think it's going to be on a major network, or is it going to be on something like Hulu? Or
That's the great thing about TV today is that there is such a huge range of options. You think even 20 years ago or 30 years ago with Scarecrow and Mrs. King. You know, you look at just the Emmy list from that time period, and CBS won X amount, you know, ABC won X amount, and you know, NBC won X amount, and that was it. And now, you know, HBO wins a lot, but AMC wins a few, and you know, Netflix wins a few. I mean, there's such a wide range of options, and Netflix is a great place for creators. Ted Sarandos has been actively seeking. I think he wanted 20 new original series for 2016, and that's a really positive home for where we can go.
Yeah, and in the end, it'll be whatever is the best fit.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of
who believes in it and who has the vision for it.
kind of like a rescue animal. We're looking for its forever home.
And it's always about the money.
Yeah.
So that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And if we can bring some money with us to them,
Yeah, we actually have a collection plate that's going around.
Yeah,
You guys can, no, sorry, kidding.
maybe they should have
Kidding,
started
kidding,
from the
kidding.
front to back. But no, that's always it, you know. And that's why it's great to have these visuals.
Yeah.
But so much more can be done now, you know, with CGI and things like that. So
One
you
more
know,
question?
it's
Yeah,
too
I think we've
expensive.
got time for one last question. And then
Anybody?
before actually we have that question asked, just a quick reminder, after this panel at 3:30, so you don't have to rush down, we'll have 30 minutes to get to the booth. We're going to have a signing at the Boom Studios booth, which again is on the main aisle, right by the Marvel booth. You can't miss it. It's got a gigantic boom on the side of it. So all three of these guys will be there to sign, as well as Connor, who did the exclusive variant cover for Atlantic City.
It's
For the
awesome.
first issue, which is awesome.
It's really awesome.
And
Greetings
yeah,
from
and,
Lantern City.
yeah, but I think he wasn't feeling well yesterday.
Okay,
So
good, okay.
yeah, but we'll have a lot of the team there, and you guys can come get things signed.
Yeah, we
And
got all the incentive covers. We did 7 incentive covers, including the special AC Boardwalk Con, and those are all available.
all available. All right, so one more question. Make it good.
Sir.
Are you going to expand the Lantern City with other characters?
Absolutely. That's the nice thing. So Matt has laid out, I think at last count, about 78 different between the 3 strata of society. And the great thing about Lantern City, as Bruce said earlier, it is Lantern City. It's not Sander's world or, you know,
Right,
focusing on
right.
one character. We have this arc with Sander trying to infiltrate the guard and ultimately assassinate Killian Gray. And
We have our original characters.
yeah, and then we have the TV show, which has different
First start,
characters.
yeah.
And then, you know, the great thing is we have so many different places to go.
There was an old television series, long before a lot of you, it was called Naked City. And it always started with a premise. There are a million stories in the Naked City. This is one of them. We can do that with Lantern City. I'd love to steal
that line.
I'm
that's
going to
fine.
do that.
I'm sure it's out of copyright now.
There are a million stories in Lantern City. This is just but one of them.
Yeah, when
If I
these
just
guys,
altered it a little bit.
I like it.
would
I think it
work.
works fine.
when these guys brought me the project and I sort of let it marinate for a little while, I said that I think a great model for us would be The Wire, because
The Wire, yeah.
it's not only arguably the best show ever, but it has so many characters and you know them all. Even if you don't see them for 3 episodes, you still know them, and that was really important to me, that
Yeah.
these characters cannot be cardboard cutouts. That you
No.
can just walk
So
by.
who's the Bubs?
We'll get there.
Or have
We'll
we
get
have
there.
we met Bubs yet?
We'll get there. We'll get there. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're a Baltimore guy.
Oh yeah.
Be more.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. Let's get a quick round of applause for everybody. Team behind Lantern City. And please join us at 3:30.
3:30, Boom Studios.
All righty, thank you.